So just to make a few other points about the importance of this base of the food web and kind of creating these unusual features of the Everglades. When you have so much periphyton growing in the system, we would assume that, well, gosh, that ought to feed a lot of little fish and a lot of little invertebrates, and they should be really happy growing on that. And so they should be looking at the periphyton as a bit of Thanksgiving dinner, right, compared to the things that they find in other habitats. This is the little alligator flea that's the local name that we use for it, but it bites you so bad that it feels like it could go through an alligator hide if it bit them. It's kind of a nasty thing that sometimes you find in the periphyton nets. Convection in the ecological realm for the movement of energy from the bottom of the food web to the top of the food web is that when you go up each level, you lose about 90%, so 10% moves up the food web. And that's because you have so much energetic loss. As an animal eats something lower on the food web, it's also doing all these other cellular functions and metabolic functions that cause it to lose a lot of energy. And so only about 10% moves on up the food web from the algae to the little invertebrate to the fish and the bigger fish. And so in the Everglades, again, we're using the same big mapping program to see how does the energy move up in the system. And what we find, again, I'm going to show you Everglades in red, other wetlands in green, lots of periphyton here, not very much in other systems. This is biomass. Are little animals. Luckily, not that many of these little guys to bite us when we go sampling. Lots of them. This is total biomass of invertebrates. You know, typically much higher in other kinds of wetlands. And very low biomass of these little fish. And that's surprising compared to how much of this we have at the base of the food web. So this is our second unassuming consumer paradox, which is that only 1% of that energy is moving up the food web. So we have very few little animals out there compared to other wetlands around the world. And so another distinctive property. One of the reasons why we have so few little animals is the system goes dry, right? Every dry season it dries down, and that's not good for little fish, it's not good for little invertebrates that live in the water. And when we zoom in again on that periphyton, it's just full of this calcium carbonate, which is like eating shredded cardboard for a little bug. I mean, this is not good stuff. I wouldn't want to eat that. It's full of just minerals and not that much energy, which is kind of embedded down in there and amongst, you know, it's like eating limestone that's been reconstituted. So somehow I found this on the internet, a plate of shredded cardboard, so thought I should put that on there. So really, this little guy is not seeing Thanksgiving dinner, it's seeing shredded cardboard. Finally, this idea of the upside down estuary, I want to end with that. As we go from our sawgrass marshes full of periphyton into our estuaries, we see this really bizarre feature that is characteristic of this system and really interesting. So most estuaries, when the water goes from upstream to downstream, it does as you would imagine. Like the nutrients and all the constituents in the water are going to go from here to there with the water. What happens in the Everglades is really different from that. So this is the natural model where we have rain coming down on the landscape that's full of industry and farms and natural habitats, and that water collects nutrients and it flows into the river and then it goes out into the estuary. And this is what creates all the problems that we see around the world in our estuaries. In the Everglades, again, we have all of this periphyton scouring nutrients from the water. Yet we have the Gulf of Mexico that actually is more replete in nutrients than any part of this upstream system except where we get those anthropogenic or human sources. And so what we actually see going on is that there's movement of water from the ocean underground. So this is a diagram looking through the bedrock. Water moving from the ocean underground bringing nutrients like phosphorus, and the salinity interacts with the phosphorus in a way to make it available to the little trees here. And so instead of the water moving from upstream to downstream and bringing nutrients with it that way, it's coming from the ocean, bringing nutrients both above and underground through that porous limestone and feeding the plants that way. We saw huge evidence of this from Hurricane Wilma, remember when it came through in 2005 and it just barreled through from the Gulf of Mexico, stormed through the peninsula of South Florida and dumped a huge load of mud. So this is a sediment core that we took from the mangroves, and you see the dark mangrove soil, the peat soil underneath the mangrove forest. And on top of this is this huge load of mud that came from the Gulf of Mexico and just got dumped in there and was just full of nutrients. And what we saw over time is that those nutrients drained back out into the water. So this is nutrient concentrations of the one that limits the growth of plants. Really low up until 2005, and then continues to spike even today. And it's because all of this mud was full of phosphorus from the Gulf of Mexico, got dumped into the interior of the Everglades, helped all those defoliated trees to recover, and is continuing to leach out into the water and sort of cause the estuaries to have algal blooms it's a completely natural process. We are accelerating this to some degree. This effect of this storm is similar to what we think about when we think about sea level rise and the impact of encroaching seas to the interior of the Everglades. It brings not just salt water, it brings nutrients. And we have to think about that when we think about restoring this system. Again, I just want to make the point that these are some of the most productive mangrove forests in the world, and they are because they get so many nutrients from the ocean, not from upstream. And so we have these many, many weird features of this system. And it's really this upside downness, this fact that it's underlain by limestone that creates a system that has lots of periphyton, very few fish, and nutrients that come from offshore. These three really central features of this bizarre system. Limestone bedrock allows these thick periphyton mats to build that absorb nutrients. They're highly inedible, and so we don't have very high biomass maintaining. I don't know why that says high biomass. It should be low biomass. And marine supplies of nutrients keep mangroves productive. Actually, I know what I meant there. Maintaining high periphyton biomass if there's not a whole lot of consumers eating. Marine supplies of nutrients keeping that mangrove forest so productive. And so there are other ecosystems out there like the Everglades. We've been able to see that from our adventures in the tropics and up in Canada. But this is our largest and most representative. It is the one that has the public eye. It has the public eye globally. And so we need to protect it as a sentinel of these features that are representative of karstic calcareous wetlands across the globe. And so can we keep it upside down, really dependent on restoring clean freshwater flow? This is the plan for Everglades restoration. Historic flows, sheet flow of water south. Our flows today start where water is channeled off through all of our canals, and the plan to restore flow to the south. Now, one of the main projects that's so relevant to the theme for today, Tamiami Trail, is the bridging of Tamiami Trail. So we now have a 1-mile bridge. We're looking for another 2.5 that's been signed on by Obama. Is that going to work to restore the interior of the Everglades? So this is just looking out from our first research site, our most upstream one, in the Sawgrass Marsh toward the trail. And we flew over that not too long ago after the bridge was created, and I was hoping that this would work because we have this incredible helicopter pilot that flies us for our field work, and he's buzzed the trail. And I love this. This is the new bridge, he was freaking out people who were driving along here. And I guess it's not going to play all the way. We zoom up, and it's so amazing to see that piece of construction that has made such a difference in the public recognition that restoration can be done. More water is going to be moving underneath that bridge. And the 2.5 miles that goes in after this is in the right place to move a lot of water into the interior. It's not as much as we need. You know, we're asking for 11. I don't think we're ever going to get that. But 2.5 more should help. And it should help bring water all the way down to our estuaries. That water is cleaner than ever because of the 10 part per billion criterion we put in. We're still not totally there yet, though. We need more of this land to clean the water. And we need more than ever, last point, because sea levels are coming up, right? So we've got our timeline here and our IPCC predictions for sea level and some maps here by Hal Longmas showing us what the Everglades could look like if we don't have fresh water restored flowing through it. If we get more fresh water moving through, we promote mangrove growth, we keep a lot of other processes from happening that collapse the soils and that create a sort of positive feedback to the impact of sea level rise. So it's just more urgent than ever that we get this underway. So I want to end with this quote by a friend of ours from University of Georgia, who is a fantastic teacher and really kind of started up the whole field of integrative, the kind of ecology that really appreciates the human dimension. And he said back in the 1970s probably, I see the future not as a time of trouble, not as a time of fear and concern, but a great opportunity for us. Our problem is to enrich the concept of community and make it more effective, and to take advantage of our uniqueness at this particular time. And I love this quote because it is something that I think we're more capable of dealing with the problems that we've created now than ever. We know how to fix these problems. We understand this ecosystem. We can do this. We have a huge community that works together and that is understanding each other in itself better than ever. So I want to end on a hopeful note, not on a scary one, that you know, the system is distinctive, it's changing, but it's not at this point where it's that it can't be helped. And we can do that with the kinds of ways in which we understand it and can manage it. So thanks so much for your attention.